Hello, and welcome to this remote theater talk for Roundabout Theater Company's reading of Angelina Weld Grimke's play, Rachel.
Rachel is the first in our reading series for the Refocus project, which is a program of Roundabout Theater Company. I'm Nafisa Monroe. I'm a teaching artist with Roundabout Theater Company, and today I'm coming to you from the traditional lands of the Lenape people.
I'm Leah Reddy. I am also a teaching artist with Roundabout's Education Department, and I am also coming to you today from the traditional lands of the Lenape people. Nafisa, I am really excited to be here talking about this play with you.
Me too. I actually studied this. I first studied this play when I was an undergrad in a private. It was a one-on-one tutorial with my professor, Kate Russian. I just want to give her a shout out. On Black women playwrights. And when I heard that this was a possibility for our reading series, I was like, yes, I want to be involved. And thank goodness our supervisors were like, okay, you can be involved.
This is actually the first time I have encountered this play, and my big takeaway from it is I wish I had seen it sooner and that more people need to read it, and it needs to be much more widely used in our colleges and high schools.
Mm-hmm. And it's public domain, so...
Exactly. And it's very, very appropriate for high school students in terms of the content.
Yeah, agreed. Leah, do you want to start and kind of just give us a little background on the playwright, Angelina?
So Angelina Weld Grimke is born in 1880 in Boston, Massachusetts, into the most prominent biracial family in the United States. And I bring up her family because it's a very important piece of her life. She can't escape it. She's named for her great aunt, Angelina Grimke Weld. So if you Google Angelina Grimke, you will probably find things about her aunt as well. So she's born to Archibald Grimke, who is a Black man, was born into slavery in the South, was the son of a slave owner and a woman that he enslaved, and a white mother, a woman from Boston named Sarah Stanley. So she's got some really interesting immediate family history.
I'm so fascinated that we don't know more about these people who were Black people who were highly educated only 20 or so odd years post the abolishment of slavery, right? Nationally anyways. And so I'm like, anytime I read that, I'm like, why don't I know this? Why have I not been told about these people? And that's how I felt about Angelina. Well, the playwright, but then I learned about her great aunt. So can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so
is it her great
aunt? It was a great aunt, yeah. So her father's born, as I mentioned, to a slave owner, and the slave owner is part of one of Charleston's most prominent families. And he had a bunch of brothers and sisters, and two of his sisters actually began to be really concerned for the eternal salvation of white people's souls for participating in slavery. So they went north and eventually became extremely influential and committed abolitionists and women's rights activists. You might have heard of the Grimke sisters, Angelina and Sarah. And when their nephews came north to get an education, they actually read about him somewhere and realized that he had to be their brother's child and contacted him and welcomed him into the family.
That's like the early Ancestry or 23andme.com, right? Like, oh my goodness, I've read about you. You're related to me, BT Dubs.
Which it's the whole thing. It's when you think about what was happening in America and the ease of which you could ignore, I think, things that happened in other places and to other people at that time.
And he was a Black man, right? Like, so this is the white family finding this Black man in their family and saying, yes, you're a part of us. Yeah. It's amazing.
It is a truly interesting story. And I love the fact that she comes from a family of people who really rebelled and who really forged their own paths.
Right. Yeah, I mean, they made a real conscious choice to leave what apparently was like a life of incredible luxury, right? Like they weren't leaving their own poverty behind; they were leaving their wealth behind to pursue these worthier causes. Yeah.
What also influenced her life was that her parents divorced when she was fairly young, and so she lived for a while with her mother's white family, and then her mom actually sent her back to live with her father. So she's raised by her father, and her father has very high standards. He's a Harvard trained lawyer. He's a very prominent activist. He actually serves as the consul to Santo Domingo. So that's like the ambassador to the Dominican Republic for a while when she's a young person. She goes to primarily white boarding schools and institutions throughout her whole career, which I must have been a very challenging experience.
I mean, from what I've always understood is that black people, especially women, like getting education, just having the right to go to a school was incredibly rare and nearly impossible. So not only is she's a black woman and she's getting this education, but also how do you get an education when you're the only one like you there? Like the fact that she excelled in this education setting is also a remarkable feat on its own.
Grimke was possibly even a further bit of an outsider in her world, in that there's a lot of speculation, especially in the past 30, 40 years, that she was a lesbian. And there's good evidence for that. She was a poet. She wrote often in a male voice about women. There are in her papers some early love letters to a female classmate. She never married.
I was going to say, did she ever marry?
She did not marry.
Interesting. So she never married. She never had any children.
Nope.
Interesting. She's a fascinating character and a fascinating writer, I find, as well. The play Rachel was many firsts, right? So it was the first of kind of a series of what scholars have now called the anti-lynching plays. It was also the first published play by a Black female playwright. That we know of, that still exists. If there was something published prior to this, we don't have any records of it. And for Angelina, or for Ms. Grimke, it was her first full-length play, right? She took a departure from poetry in order to write this play. One thing that I think is really interesting is that she started this partially in response to the movie that was being made called The Birth of a Nation, which I think meant 1915 is when it actually premiered. I haven't actually watched it. I know I haven't watched it, but in film history, it has lots of significance, but also in America's racial dynamic, it's incredibly, what's the word? I don't want to say insightful, but a little
it incited things.
Incited things, yes, definitely.
That's what I thought you meant.
I meant like it really gives us a vision of what white supremacists were thinking of at that time. And what I didn't know about that movie was that actually was based on a play from 1905 called The Klansman, which apparently was another romantic Ku Klux Klan play, which is disturbing. But Angelina took it upon herself to say, this is not reality. These are not what Black people, who Black people are in their entirety. And I have something to say about it. And she made the choice to write this play, Rachel. And I think that's such an important piece of who she was as an artist. The other thing that I think is important to understand about anti-lynching plays is that it's one of the reason they kind of got their own genre was because they were they involved a more personal response to the concept of lynching. So it was the possibility of it happening to a family member or to someone or a character in the play, or the traumatic after effects of it having happened. It was really a key part of the dramatic action. And that's what really defined this concept of anti-lynching plays. After Rachel was produced, the production was sponsored by the NAACP Drama Committee. after that, there were calls from W.B. Du Bois in the Crisis magazine, which is the magazine of the NAACP, and by the way, still exists to this day, which is pretty amazing. But there were calls to people to write plays, and one of the things that W.B. Du Bois really noticed was that this form of entertainment, if there was a Black character in a play, and there was an actual Black actor playing this Black character, because that wasn't always true as well, that it was 9 times out of 10, actually 99.9% of the time, written by a white playwright. And that the part of our activism had to be artistic. It had to show the world the humanity of Black people. There's a quote here that I want to read that I really, there's an English professor, Dr. Caritha Mitchell, and she wrote I think this was from her article called The Anti-Lynching Plays, or it was a chapter of a book. But she wrote that these plays were not creative accessories to the movement. They were very much a part of it. Like, they were necessary to the process of not only seeking racial equality, but also seeking anti-lynching legislation. At the time, it wasn't illegal for a mob to chase down somebody and perform these violent acts upon them. And that's what the activists were fighting against. And you see a lot of this in Rachel. You see Grimke really, from the family perspective, examining what happens in the home if that threat is out there, if that incredible threat of violence and pain and trauma is literally just outside your door. And one of the things I think Grimke did also, which is a part of her activism and protest, is she wrote these incredibly highly intelligent Black characters. And they weren't rich, they were poor, but they had each other. They were loyal to each other. They were highly educated. They were spick and span. She makes really she makes a real clear, like, she draws a real clear line in her stage directions. Like, this house is spotless. And she even wrote about that, like, poverty doesn't mean dirty. And she basically, in this one play, she fought every single stereotype that I'm sure she received as a Black woman in the States at the time, but also every single stereotype that had showed up in any plays or any movies of Black that were not written by Black people, of the Black experience at the time.
There's one other thing I want to bring up, is that Grimke wrote about why she wrote Rachel, and she was really specific that she was writing for a primarily white audience, specifically white women, who she said were the most conservative element of society. And also, she wrote about motherhood because she thought if there's any way that we are sisters under the skin, it is in that experience.
Absolutely. This was a quote that from Grimke herself. If the white women of this country could see, feel, understand just what effect their prejudice and the prejudice of their father, brother, husbands, sons were having on the souls of the colored mothers everywhere, and upon the mothers that are to be, a great power to affect public opinion would be set free, and the battle would be half won. She was incredible.
And unfortunately, I just see so many echoes of what she's saying again and again and again.
I mean, that's the other, like, kind of jarring thing about the play, is how relevant it still is. So the original production of Rachel was in 1916 at the Myrtilla Minor Normal School for Colored Girls in Washington, D.C. It was also called the Minor Teachers College, depending on what source you read. But it was 1916, and it was sponsored. The production was sponsored by the NAACP or NAACP, depending on where you're from. It was actually billed as the first attempt to use the stage to protest racist violence, which I think is pretty fascinating. Like they actually build it as such, like in the advertisements. Come see this protest to racist violence, which is kind of awesome. It was a local troupe. It was a community affair. And tickets were sold in the drugstore down the street on 12th and U Streets. If you're coming to us from Washington, D.C., y'all know where that is. And Grimke was still working. Like she was, what I think is really also significant about all these female playwrights, but especially we're talking about Grimke, like none of them made a living from playwriting. They did it out of their will, their activism and their desire to contribute to the art. Grimke was a full-time teacher. She was still teaching at the time. You want to talk about her legacy, Grimke's legacy, a little bit?
Yeah. So after Rachel, the play was actually published in 1920. It had a second production at the Neighborhood Playhouse in New York in 1917. And then throughout the 20s, Grimke becomes associated with the Harlem Renaissance for her poetry. She's much more known for her poetry than she is for her drama. She grew very close to her father later in his life. And when he died, I believe it was in 1930, she left Washington, D.C. and moved to New York, to Harlem, not far from where I am now. And that's where she lived out the last 28 years of her life.
And so when you say that it was not far from your house, have you gone to see if that building is still there?
I may have gone to see that building, yes.
Did you take pictures? Are we going to see the building?
I think I'm going to put some pictures in here, yes.
Okay, awesome.
For some reason, it's very important for me to see the material places that people were, to understand that there is this history all around us and there's this history all around me. It's like the land acknowledgement, right? Like we are on the traditional land of the Lenape people, and I'm also on the traditional land of Angelina Weld Grimke.
Absolutely. And the fact that, you know, we can do that when we're in a place like New York, where some of the buildings literally carry that history. When we talk about Grimke's legacy, like I'm one of her legacies. Like I realize that me as a Black woman, first of all, as a Black woman existing is a part of any Black woman's legacy in the history of the United States, because I am the great grandchild of someone who was born in slavery. I think it's 3 greats. Anyways, but also I'm a writer and I write plays and and I'm part of her legacy. And that to me, like that kind of blows my mind and gives me comfort at the same time.
No, I 100% understand that. And we both work with students and they are all part of her legacy, both as an educator, as a writer, as a Black woman, as a woman.
Yes. Yeah. And that what she wanted to do was give voice to the truth of what it is to be Black in America. And she wanted to make sure that other people knew that they had the ability to use their voice to tell their story, and use your art to share your beliefs and to make a difference in the world.
We have posted a lot more resources on our website, roundabouttheater.org. Please visit it.
The research is growing. Yeah. But please visit. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. So please enjoy this production of Rachel, this reading, directed by Roundabout resident director Miranda Heyman.
I just want to thank everyone for joining us. We look forward to seeing you live and in person soon. Our fingers and toes are crossed that we get to see you soon.